The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Plain white envelope, HOA letterhead, black ink still sharp from the printer. Inside was a single paragraph, clinical, cold, and absolutely certain of itself. It informed me that I had 14 days to dismantle the fence I had legally installed on my own property. They didn't call, they didn't knock, they just threatened. What they didn't know was that I had already been building something far more dangerous than a fence. If you've ever had someone wave a rulebook at you and tell you what you can and cannot do with land you own, then this story is going to feel very familiar. Subscribe right now to HOA Drama Neighbor, because what you're about to hear proves that knowledge, documented, legal, undeniable knowledge, is the only fence they can never tear down. My name is Harrison Fletcher. 4 years ago, I purchased a home in Mapleshade Valley, 3 acres total. A rear parcel of wooded land running along a small seasonal creek on the eastern edge. For 2 full years, the neighborhood was fine. Then Nancy Albright moved in next door. Nancy was the kind of person who saw a neighborhood as a project to be managed, and herself as the project manager. Within 7 months, she ran for the HOA board. She complained that my seasonal holiday lights were up 3 days past the deadline. She flagged that my trash bins weren't rolled back far enough from the curb. I had deer, lots of them. They were stripping my young orchard trees and destroying the garden beds I'd spent 2 summers building. Pulled the proper county permit. I hired a licensed contractor. I had the property surveyed and the fence placed entirely within my land. 3 days after the installation was complete, Nancy was in my driveway. "Mr. Fletcher," she said, "that fence you've installed is in direct violation of HOA Bylaw Section 4. Subsection C, electrified fencing is expressly prohibited." I looked at her calmly. "Do you have that in writing, Nancy?" "The specific bylaw language." She smiled. That particular smile people give when they believe they've already won. 2 days later, the official violation notice arrived. Bold red lettering across the top. Notice of violation. It listed a 14-day compliance deadline and warned of $200 per day in fines. I didn't panic. I went to my home office, pulled out every document from closing, and spent an entire Saturday reading every page, with a highlighter in hand. And then, that is when I found it. Section 4, subsection C, applied only to covenant jurisdiction parcels, as defined by the original 1991 subdivision plat. My rear 3-acre parcel had been deeded separately in 2006. The HOA covenant explicitly limited its authority to the original 1991 plat. My fence was on land the HOA had never had any authority over. I called Vivian, Reed, a property rights and HOA litigation attorney with 15 years of experience. I sent her everything that evening. "Harrison," she said, "the HOA has 0 jurisdiction over that rear parcel. Every fine they've assessed is legally unenforceable, and if they push this into court, they're going to look very bad very quickly." I kept my HOA dues current, stayed courteous at neighborhood events. I let the 14-day deadline come and go without a word. Step 3 arrived 8 days later, a certified letter from Stonebridge Property Management listing $1,400 in accumulated fines and a final 7-day deadline before a court petition. Vivian's formal response ran 16 pages. It cited the plat, the deed, the covenant's own jurisdictional language, and concluded with a direct threat of civil countersuit. I delivered it to the management office myself, handed it to the front desk, made sure it was time-stamped, and said nothing else. Nancy filed a complaint with county code enforcement, claiming my fence lacked permits and crossed a neighboring easement. As both were lies. The code enforcement officer visited, reviewed my permits, walked the line, confirmed no violations, and left satisfied. Then Nancy physically entered my property, walked past my clearly posted no trespassing signs, and began photographing the fence from inside my lot. I had 6 cameras on that rear parcel, recorded, time-stamped, crystal clear. Vivian added criminal trespass to the civil complaint. The April HOA meeting agenda arrived. Buried between a landscaping update and a pool committee report was a line item. Community safety discussion. Fletcher. Property fence. The meeting room held about 30 neighbors. I arrived early, sat near the back, and waited. Nancy stood at the front like she was conducting a trial. She held up printed photographs of my fence. She talked about electrical hazards. She talked about property values. She talked at length about the children. When she finished, Winston turned to me. "Mr. Fletcher, did you want to respond?" I walked to the front. I set my folder on the table. I placed a 1991 plat map on the projector. "This boundary," I said, "is the complete jurisdictional boundary of the HOA's covenants. My rear parcel, Parcel B, is outside this line." 30 people went completely silent. "Additionally," I said, "my attorney has filed a formal civil complaint for unlawful fine collection, harassment, and trespassing by a sitting board member documented on video." Nancy's expression collapsed. Winston reached for his water. The HOA's retained attorney leaned over and spoke urgently into the president's ear. "Mr. Fletcher, we'd like to request a brief recess." "Of course," I said. I went back to my seat. The recess lasted 14 minutes, all fines rescinded. The violation notice formally withdrawn. The board acknowledged in writing that Parcel B was outside covenant jurisdiction. Nancy Albright was suspended from all board functions pending a conduct review. The fence is still standing. The deer haven't come back. And every morning, I walk out to the back of my property and feel something I hadn't felt in nearly a year. Free? Tell me in the comments. If this story reminds you that knowing your rights is the most powerful thing you own, subscribe to HO Drama Neighbor right now. Your property is yours. Your rights are real. And HO Drama Neighbor will always be here to remind you of both.